So thanks for joining us today for EPSA's third Competitive Power Summit. We have a very full day today. We've had a number of last-minute changes, some unexpected surprises, and some folks who were kind enough to pinch hit for us today. So we're grateful for them, and we're of course grateful that all of you decided to join us. You're going to see and hear enough of me today, so I want to introduce to you first our first two speakers. The first is EPSA's Board Chairman Nate Hanson from LS Power, who will offer some thoughts on the day we have ahead of us, reliability, competitive markets, technology, and innovation, and how those things will be critical to addressing the many challenges that are facing our system. And after Nate, the District of Columbia Public Service Commission Chairman Emile Thompson will share some opening thoughts, as well as being our local host, as he's quite literally from just up the street. Chairman Thompson was appointed to the Public Service Commission of the District of Columbia by Mayor Muriel Bowser in 2021. And unlike so many of us that come to DC for work or school, the chairman was born here in Washington, DC, and resides here with his wife and children. Before we start, though, I want to thank all of our sponsors who made today possible. So first, of course, our platinum sponsors, Calpine and LS Power. Our gold sponsors are AlphaGen, BP Energy, DCI Group, and Vistra Corp. Our silver sponsors, CPV, Cogentrix, McDermott Will & Emery, NRG Energy, and Tenaska. Our bronze sponsors, which include FTI, Harris Beach, J-Power, Tiger Genco, and Virtual Armor. And our reception sponsor for later today, Orion Strategies. If you've never been to one of their receptions, that's half the reason to stay the entire day. And then last but not least, our media sponsor, which is RTO Insider. So Nate and Chairman Thompson, welcome to the Competitive Power Summit. The stage is yours.
You know, Todd always kicked these off. I think this is our third annual Competitive Power Summit with a joke, so he's kind of relinquished that. So here we go. So there's three people, a biologist, a chemist, and an electrical engineer, and they're all up for electrocution. Everybody awake yet? So first goes the biologist. So they bring the biologist out, and they ask him, do you have any last words to say? And he says, no. And so they put him in the chair, they flip the switch, and nothing happens. So in this jurisdiction where they are, if nothing happens, he gets released. So he's set free. Next, they go and get the chemist. So they bring him out. Of course, it's always a him. And they bring him out. You have any last words to say? And he says, nope, let's just get it over with. Sit him in the seat, flip the switch, nothing happens. So he is set free. Now they go back and get the electrical engineer. They bring him out, and they say, any last words to say? And he goes, well, if you flip the red and the black wires, the chair would probably work. And so but that, not quite the reliability you're looking for, but somewhat on point. Look, we've been in this, just in the beginning stages of really a long-term trend of integrating low carbon resources into our supply mix. You know, renewable penetration across the country is still at a very low level. We still have a significant amount of fossil fuel generation, which drives reliable power supply at a cost-effective rate across the country. You know, I think about reliability and affordability as two of the key components to being successful in how we proceed down the path of, you know, decarbonizing not only the electricity that we use, but also the energy use within the country. I mean, we haven't even barely touched electrification of the transportation sector, manufacturing, residential and commercial use is really kind of still on the horizon for us. And now with data center growth and, you know, demand growth projections in various parts of the country, almost year over year doubling in what those projections are, and I think that's still will fall way short of what we would expect demand to increase. You know, this will make the problem of decarbonizing the energy supply in the U.S. even harder. Reliability is really going to require almost more of everything. With the demand growth projections, we're going to need more energy supply, whether that be renewable supply, you know, fossil supply with carbon capture or hydrogen blending. Who knows what the future will hold and be an economic alternative to what we're doing today. But we're going to need more of it to meet the increased demand driven by just increased electricity use from data centers and, growth into the, just economic growth, primarily in the southeastern parts of the United States, and then data center growth in other parts of the country, at least for now. And then we're going to need more balancing resources as we integrate more, intermittent resources into our grid. We had a grid that's, 40, 50 years old. It was all built around centralized power stations that had backup fuel and a lot of flexibility. We've, in certain parts of the country, absorbed all the flexibility that it has, and now we're having trouble maintaining the stability of the grid. So in California and Texas, we see that, and we see that really on the horizon in other parts of the country. And we're all dealing with different policy objectives to try to figure out what the right answer is. And then transmission, we're going to build new resources in areas where they weren't built before. So we're going to have to transmit those, not only on the transmission level, but be able to distribute at the distribution level to really where the end user is. And we can't forget, as we go through all of this, that the consumer pays for all of this. No matter what bucket you want to put it in, whether it's a tax credit, or you want to get a long-term PPA off of a plant, or you're just paying your residential power rate, the consumer is going to pay for all of this. And we've seen electricity costs across the country increase pretty significantly, not only in the energy part of the bill, but also on the T&D part of the bill. So we need to think about affordability. We need to make smart decisions. And to me, it really comes down to, we need to think differently around how we, plan for the future. We've always lived in really a homogeneous type of resource planning world. And we need to think about, what is the grid going to need? It may not be a homogeneous product. It may be different products. And we're starting to talk about what those different products may be. So, look, I'm always an optimist. I think at the end of the day, we're all trying to work together to solve what is a very complex problem that we have here. How do we complete this task? You can look at the movie Oppenheimer. Everyone had one goal, and they all worked towards it. And at some point, we need to kind of knock down the barriers of each of our own roles and think more holistically of how do we get there and see what type of progress we can make. So I'll leave it at that. I'm really looking forward to the conversation today, and I'll turn it over to Emile Thompson. Thank you.
Perfect.
There we go. All right. Good morning and welcome to Washington, D.C. I'm Emile C. Thompson, Chairman of the D.C. Public Service Commission. I'm honored to be here this morning to give opening remarks at the 3rd Annual EPSA Competitive Power Summit. I'd like to give a special thanks to EPSA President and CEO, Todd Snitchler, as well as the Board Chair, Nate Hanson. I see many familiar faces in the crowd and on the agenda, so I know today's discussion will be substantive and a meaningful one and address many of the challenges facing the industry today. EPSA has been a leader in the competitive electric supply field for the last 25 years. Their mission revolves around 5 core principles. 1, the need for properly functioning competitive wholesale markets. 2, using those markets to efficiently evolve the resource mix. 3, supporting efforts to fight and combat climate change. 4, customer choice. And 5, ensuring that those markets and their tariffs should not be unduly discriminatory for its participants. The summit today highlights each of those principles against the challenges facing our industry. And where are those challenges? Well, I think there's many of them, but I think we're going to focus on just a few today. And those being reliability, load growth, innovation, and gas-electric coordination. So allow me to give a few primer thoughts before we begin today. Over the past few years, we've seen reliability events affect the grid more and more often. What once was a once-in-5-year event is now seemingly a yearly exercise, whether it's Winter Storm Uri in February of 2021, or Winter Storm Elliott in December of 2022, or even Winter Storm Jerry most recently in January of 2024, reliability is more and more of a concern. And why is that? I'm sure NERC CEO Jim Robb will talk about this a little bit later, But in NERC's most recent ERO report, they listed 5 risk profiles to reliability, and they were energy policy, grid transformation, resilience to extreme weather events, security risks, and critical infrastructure interdependencies. To me, that sounds like words like resource retirements, increased load, greater climate variance, cybersecurity issues, and gas-electric harmonization. But again, each of these pose significant risks to reliability. I can tell you though, as a retail regulator, when customers are looking at reliability, they don't care about these risk profiles. They want to know that when they turn that light switch, that the light comes on. So, how do you deal with that in the face of increased load growth? For a number of years, load growth was relatively flat due to a number of factors, including energy efficiency. Now, even that is changing. A report that was recently filed with FERC states that nationwide electricity demand is expected to grow by 4.7% over the next 5 years, and that peak demand is expected to grow by 38 gigawatts over the next 5 years. These numbers are staggering. The report further stated that the main drivers of this increase, which are 81% higher than the previous projections, can be attributed to data centers and industrial facilities. Now, we in DC feel those impacts directly. While we don't have traditional generation, we are part of PJM. And in last November, PJM's 2023 Regional Transmission Expansion Plan, there was a proposal for nearly $5 billion in transmission upgrades to address data center load growth and generation deactivations, primarily in the Northern Virginia region. The largest portion of this work is centered on Data Center Alley near Dulles Airport in Loudoun County, roughly 30 miles from here, with over $1 billion of projects signed to Dominion in that region. And while electrification policies and electric vehicle adoption are significant, they certainly ranked lower on the lower as load growth drivers. But presumably that will change. And so I think it's safe to say that load growth will continue to be an issue as we move forward. The days of stagnant load growth are over for the foreseeable future. So I ask again, what is needed from industry to maintain reliability in the face of load growth? Well, that brings us to the 2 other things I mentioned earlier, innovation and gas-electric harmonization. Innovation will provide us with the tools to maintain reliability in the midst of an energy transition. In fact, that is what any transition calls for, an innovation of thought and an innovation of technology. The first discussion that we'll have today around innovation really focuses on gas turbine technology. And that's important because it emphasizes the need for increased efficiency and lower cost resources to aid in the transition. I think it's clear, and certainly not up for discussion, that more generation is going to be needed to address load growth and reliability. The second conversation focuses on innovative methods of reducing emissions through low carbon fuel alternatives. This is also as important because it speaks to the heart of one of EPSA's core principles, and that is combating climate change. And if we're going to make this transition, we have to do so in a smart manner. We have to do it effectively and responsibly using an all-of-the-above approach. We will certainly need our thermal resources to provide base load power for the foreseeable future, and we cannot solely rely on new renewables entering the generation mix. And we have to make sure that our markets provide the right price signals and a viable path for them to operate. And this brings me to our last topic, gas-electric coordination. For many years, gas and electric have operated in their own separate silos. But with the electric generation industry relying more and more on gas to generate electricity, harmonization between the 2 industries is more important than ever. The competition for gas molecules will get more intense as we have more coal retirements, more demand from overseas, and increasing load growth. Initiatives like the NARUC Gas Electric Alignment for Reliability Task Force is key to foster that dialogue and keep those lines of communication open. I know President Fedorchak will speak about that during her time. But more still needs to be done between the 2 industries to identify solutions for better harmonization. More importantly, we must work towards consensus items that ensure that everyone at the table is being heard and their input is valued. The concluding panel will speak directly to this.